Hey everybody, this is Mr. Moppin coming back at you with another APUSH video. Once again, this is topic 8.5. We're taking a look at American culture from 1945 to 1965. And last time we were here, we were talking about the impact of television and consumerism and conformity shaping American culture. And keeping with some of those themes, particularly themes regarding consumerism. We mentioned last time that the mom and pop, the traditional mom and pop business that had defined American commerce for a long time was really starting to fall by the wayside. And as part of this, you are seeing the growth of these what you would kind of call mega corporations, not just a corporation that might be known for one specific thing, I don't know. Back in the day when we had Standard Oil was, oil products. Well, now you are taking a look at what you would call conglomerates. These are companies that are so big and so massive that what they are involved in is not in one specific area, but in many different areas of industry. And we have a homegrown example of that. Procter & Gamble, based in Cincinnati, which has been around for well over 150 years, started out as a soap company. If you've ever heard of, Ivory Soap, that's from Procter & Gamble. And no, that was kind of their business for a long time. They made soap. But then that started as they got into the 20th century, expanding to other types of, cleaning products. By the time we get to, World War II era, after World War II, we're starting to see other products in terms of, cleaning things such as, Tide detergent and stuff like that. But, as we go through this period, they become even bigger and even broader. They get into all sorts of household products, and personal items such as, Crest toothpaste, or, many feminine hygiene products. Heck, they even get into the food business with Pringles. So we are starting to see the growth of these mega corporate conglomerates that are going to be defining the economy. And speaking of the economy, as we've mentioned previously, this post-World War II period is going to see a noticeable evolution from what had been defining America's economy since the Civil War era. And basically that transformation is going from a blue-collar, manufacturing, industrial-based economy with jobs in factories in steel and jobs in oil refining, car manufacturing, that kind of stuff. Jobs, factories mostly located in what we would call today the Rust Belt, so places like Pittsburgh and Detroit, Youngstown, Ohio, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, etc. But that is changing as we are now seeing more and more Americans taking advantage of things like the GI Bill, for example, and with greater affluence and stuff like that. We're going to be seeing more folks embracing careers in white-collar work and advancements in tech, opportunities in the defense industry, the space industry that's going to be emerging after World War II is certainly going to be driving that. And that's going to mark a noticeable switch, a permanent switch, really, as far as we've seen ever since, that, as we look at today's economy, it is dramatically dominated by white-collar, service-based work, and that starts after World War II. Now, once again, keeping with the world of business, but this time from the labor perspective, we're going to be seeing a very important agreement be brokered from what had become the two largest labor unions in America. You may recall the AFL, the American Federation of Labor, the group started by Samuel Gompers in the late 1800s and had catered to skilled workers, had now had a rival before World War II, and that was the Congress of Industrial Organizations, the CIO, which was catering to unskilled labor. And so in 1955, these two very, very powerful unions are going to come together and basically create a mega union, now known as the AFL-CIO. This is by far the largest umbrella union in America today, with millions of members across the country. And this is going to be an important event because not only does it show this creation of a big labor union that's, maybe somebody like Terrence Powderly from the Knights of Labor, almost a century earlier would approve of, but it also shows a necessity amongst labor unions to have to evolve in the post-World War II economy. As I said, the economy is changing. It's becoming less tied to manufacturing, more service-based, more collegiate skill-based. And with things like the passage of the Taft-Hartley Act in 1947, it was now going to be easier for state governments, for example, to limit the power of unions. So as much as this shows a sign of strength within the world of labor, it's also showing necessity to be able to have to do something like that. Now, shifting to some other items regarding American values. Once again, we've mentioned previously that the post-World War II era, particularly in the 1950s, is going to be known as being a very conservative period of time, a conformist period of time, and you really can't stress that enough. The idea that in the 1950s, you didn't really want to stand out in any kind of discernible way. There was a very, very strong priority placed on men wearing suits, to go to work. You wore a hat outside the house, and when you did wear that suit, gentlemen, it was a very modest-looking suit. It was gray or black or a blue suit. You didn't wear anything like a red jacket. You know what I mean? You didn't wear jeans to work. You didn't, wear sneakers to work or anything like that. You didn't wear a T-shirt, unless you were working out, working in the lawn or something like that. It was very, very conservative. Men keeping their hair short. Beards, in fact, were not particularly in style with the adult class. And for women, once again, also very conformist and conservative. Ladies expected to wear dresses at all times. Pants were nearly verboten during that time period. And note, this was also applied to students in school. If you went to school, public school in the 1950s, there were strictly enforced dress codes. Female students could not wear pants. Female students had to wear dresses, skirts, things like that. Male students, could not wear jeans to school. They had to wear dress pants and collared shirts and all that kind of stuff. So there was a definite, sense amongst the public that you had to fit in. You had to be like everybody else. You had to be looking, dressing in a very conservative way that, underscores, traditional gender roles and all that kind of stuff. And keeping with this idea of, conservatism and traditional values, we also saw this manifested in a noticeable growth in church attendance in the 1950s. If you take a look at this graph right here, obviously this is showing you most of the 20th century, or at least most of the last, 80 years or so. Take a look at this part of the graph right here. You can see through the 1950s a noticeable growth in weekly attendance to church or any place of worship for that matter. And once again, it's speaking to this idea that as an American, there were very specific expectations in terms of what a man was supposed to do, what a woman was supposed to do, how a man was supposed to dress, how a woman was supposed to dress, the prioritization of family, the prioritization of economic success, all those kinds of things. Also, a strong emphasis on patriotism, all this kind of stuff. It's a very, very conservative time period during the 1950s, no question about that. And especially when it's going to be applied to expectations of women. I think many of you know that in the 1950s, despite previous experiences with some degree of independence, be it women working in factories in large numbers during both the World Wars or the flappers in the 1920s. After World War II, Rose of the Riveter is going to go from working in the factory to being told, thank you, you can now go home now. And that's what's going to be happening. Women are going to be very strongly expected to get married young. Young people, individuals got married at a very young age in the 1950s. You're talking about women getting married on average about 20, men getting married on average about 22, becoming parents, by the time you're 24. Very, very young to get married, start a family, all those kinds of things. And as a woman, you were expected to, do those traditional responsibilities of maintaining the household, raising the children, The husband, the father, had a very set responsibility to work outside the home and provide financially for the family. A woman was not really an equal in that relationship with her husband. The father was the boss. The father was the head of the household. The father was almost exclusively in charge of the finances, the major decision making for the family, whereas the wife, the mother, was in charge of some of the more domestic responsibilities, and at best maybe an advisor to her husband. So these are very traditional roles. But at the same time, though, we are seeing some beginnings of kind of questioning and changing some of those traditional values, and we even see some of it found in parenting, and that's going to be credited with Dr. Benjamin Spock, pictured right here. Dr. Spock, and no, he is not a Star Trek character. Dr. Spock is going to be seen as ahead of the curve in terms of how children in a modern society, such as the 1950s, should be raised. And to provide a little context for this, children historically, were viewed as, in many respects, just pre-adults, for lack of a better term. The idea being is that, children didn't get much of a pass in terms of their expectations. Children were socialized and, let's be honest, punished severely if they did not, quickly begin to conform to the expectations of an adult world in terms of demeanor, behavior, work ethic, all that kind of stuff. But Dr. Spock is going to be one of these folks that's going to argue that, hey, we need to recognize that childhood is something special. It is unique. It's an important foundational part of human development. It's not pre-adulthood. And the idea being is that if you want to have the most well-adjusted people in society, you need to have a good childhood. That the idea being is a lot of adult trauma and anxiety and things like that stem from really rough childhoods. And so Dr. Spock is going to be arguing that we are fortunate enough as a society to have the affluence, to have the opportunity to make this happen. And so Dr. Spock is going to argue that childhood should be celebrated, and that affection should be frequently and unconditionally given to children. So, for example, the idea of having a birthday party. This is not some luxury, should not necessarily be a luxury for the very, very rich, but it should be an acknowledgement of a milestone of human development. And that doesn't mean you have to spend a lot of money or anything like that, but a sense that, hey, we love you, that we appreciate you being a year older. And speaking of love, Dr. Spock is going to advocate for more overt affection from parents to their children. Not necessarily historically a problem for mothers and women to hug and say, hey, I love you and stuff like that. But for men, traditionally that was not done. About as much affection as you would normally get from a father as a child is maybe a handshake, and that's about it. But Dr. Spock would say, no. Fathers also have that same responsibility to hug their children, tell them they love them, and show that affection, like their mothers, and that's going to be very, very important. Also, Dr. Spock is going to say that you cannot use corporal punishment as a way to teach children or to discipline children, that is way more damaging than beneficial. So, if you as a young person have ever had a birthday party, or had their father say I love you, or were not spanked as a child, you can thank this guy right here. This is Dr. Spock, and he is going to play a critical role in that evolution of what parenting is supposed to be. Now, critics will argue that Dr. Spock, at the same time, may have laid the groundwork for maybe some negative attributes of children moving forward, that maybe Dr. Spock has created a society today where children perhaps are way more self-centered than they need to be, and do not take as much personal accountability and responsibility for their actions as maybe they would have previously. It's still an interesting debate, but bottom line, when we talk about, modern childhood, modern parenting, that certainly is derived from the work of Dr. Spock, no question about it. So, anyhow, I'm going to go ahead and leave it there for now. We'll have another video soon. So, see you next time. Bye-bye.